Welcome everyone. It's great to see such a full house to welcome the Honorable Minister and our distinguished guests here. Welcome to the 2025 Columbia Energy India Dialogue, hosted by the Center on Global Energy Policy at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs, in cooperation with the Columbia Global Center in Mumbai and supported by Renew. My name is Shayak Singupta. I lead the India Energy Program at the Center. And just as an overview for those of you who are not familiar with our center, we're based in New York City and we're attached to the university, but we'd like to think that we provide actionable academic quality insights for policymakers to address climate and energy challenges. We're the largest energy think tank in the United States, and so our focus on India is especially important given India's role as a leader in the global energy transition, as well as developing and emerging economies. So the theme of today's dialogue is friendships among fragmentation. It's a timely discussion on India's energy transition, given the global tensions we're seeing both geopolitically as well as in trade. So I'd first like to start off our program by introducing Mr. Sumant Sinha, who is the founder, CEO of and chairman of Renew. Mr. Sinha is Renew is one of the largest clean energy companies listed on NASDAQ. Mr. Sinha is a global entrepreneur and internationally recognized thought leader on energy and climate change. Mr. Sinha founded Renew in 2011 with a vision to drive a just and inclusive transition to net zero energy. Under his leadership, Renew has developed a diverse clean energy portfolio.
Yeah, thank you, Shayak. Thank you for keeping it brief. That always helps. Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal, Jason Bordoff, the founding director of the Columbia Center for Global Energy Policy, Dave, who was the former deputy secretary of energy at the Department of Energy in the US and is currently associated with the Columbia Center of Energy Policy. Parikshit, of course, as well, and friends, all of you who are here today. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all here for really, in some ways, a fairly seminal conversation that we're having right now, which, as Shayak said, is really taking place in the backdrop of a fairly fragmented world that we're living in right now. And within that, what is the role that friendships can play? What is the role, in fact, that trade agreements can play? What is the role that partnerships can play? And I think there's no better person to talk to us about that, of course, than Minister Piyush Goyal here, because he's really in the thick of action from an India standpoint and obviously is talking to everybody in the world right now on that count. I think as far as India is concerned, I would say that given the fact that we're talking energy right now, as far as energy is concerned, of course, we have a lot of linkages with the outside world. We all know that we import a huge amount of our energy from outside of India. But at the same time, we're also working on making sure that that dependence goes down over time. And certainly in the electricity sector, we've made a lot of progress, and we are making a lot of progress every year at an increasing pace on making sure that more and more of our production and supply chain actually now starts coming in from India. And one of the things that this government has done particularly well is really looking at trying to indigenize the manufacturing supply chain. And I think one of the issues that we have to now think about is how can we actually use the capabilities that we're developing in the supply chain to actually act as an export hub for other parts of the world as well. And that is something perhaps where Minister Goyal can shed some light on whether in fact this is something that is becoming part of conversations as India increases its manufacturing capabilities. I think one of the other things that we're looking at from an energy standpoint is the fact that it's really broadening out. It's really broadening out to include multiple different sources. It's not just now, of course, it was about coal and then about renewables, but it's also now including nuclear into the conversation. And of course, there are other areas of energy such as green hydrogen that are very relevant and very germane to the whole conversation around how this sector evolves in the future as well. I would also say that some of this is really possible. The base for some of the work that we're doing right now was actually set by Minister Goyal when he was, in fact, the power and the renewable energy minister. So a lot of the focus towards setting up the 500 gigawatt target, the focus on thinking about how do we have much more transparent bidding in our system through institutions like SECI, for example, was actually conceived during that time period. And some of those decisions have frankly been quite revolutionary. And I think this is really where India offers us the opportunity of, or not us particularly, but the other emerging markets, for how this sector can really be looked at and developed in a very different way going forward. So I think India has done some really, really interesting things in our sector. Companies like ours are beneficiaries of that. And of course, we are in very active partnership and dialogue with the government to figure out how we can make this sector collectively and collaboratively go forward in a much more effective manner. I am pretty confident that the 500 gigawatt target that we have by 2030 will fundamentally be achieved. But I think the conversation is already shifting now. It is shifting beyond 2030, and it's shifting to what are the other things that we need to do to create the platform for even more significant growth. And for me, always the amazing statistic is that we are doing 500, the target we have is 500 by 2030, but really post 2030, almost every 4 or 5 years, we'll have to be replicating that 500 gigawatts, every few years' time. And so therefore, we need to really rethink our entire electricity systems, our entire energy systems, fundamentally in a very different way from where we are right now. That is really where all of the above strategy and positioning India as a potential export hub is going to become really, really important. And I think in that context, having the conversations we're having with CGEP here, getting in that global perspective, blending that in with all the stuff that we are doing here, and really trying to arrive at what is the formula that might work for the world as a whole and for other emerging markets, I think becomes really very relevant and very, very interesting. And so we have this really good opportunity to have those conversations with Jason and Dave and the whole CGEP team being here right now. I really look forward to the conversations of this evening. So thank you again, Minister Goyal, for coming, and thank you to the CGEP team for being here as well.
Thank you, Mr. Sinha, for your insights. I'd next like to welcome Shri Piyush Goyal, Honorable Union Minister for Commerce and Industry and Member of Parliament, North Mumbai Lok Sabha. He previously served as leader of the House in the Rajya Sabha and held a multitude of ministries, including the Ministry of Consumer Affairs and Food and Public Distribution, Textiles, Railways, Finance, Corporate Affairs, Coal, Power, New and Renewable Energy, and Mines. So if there's any minister who could speak about the topic of our discussion today, it is Minister Goyal. So Minister Goyal, I'd welcome you to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Sumant, for a very enlightening opening keynote. Thank you, Jason, Dave, Parikshit, Vaishali. Mr. Gupta and I have worked together 8 or 9 years ago when I was coal minister. Look at the transition from coal to renewable energy. But in a way, that's the India story. It reflects exactly what's happening. We need coal. We have no doubt about that. But the coal joint secretary is now chairman of SECI. So you can't ask for a better endorsement of our story. And such a large contingent of friends from the fragmented media. I've attended a lot of university events. I've never seen more media in an event. So compliments to you, Sumant, or to Columbia, or to you, Parikshit, I don't know.
Or maybe to you for being here.
Then if at all you have to give comments, it will be across the 7 seas. They're not here to meet me. But wonderful to meet all of you. I don't believe it's a fragmented world at all. I think collectively all of us in the world recognize the importance of saving the planet. We all recognize that end of the day, the energy transition is an issue we will all have to contribute to. The level of contribution, the speed of transition will obviously be different considering the level of development of different nations. But I'm very confident that there would hardly be anybody in the world who would not be acknowledging that this problem is for real. The pathways can be different. The recognition that the solutions in different countries will have to be tailor-made for that country will of course mean that each one of us will have to craft our own story. But within this fragmented thought process, all of us are committed to fighting this challenge of climate change. We in India are at the forefront of that. I suspect COP21 wouldn't have come out with any outcome but for Prime Minister Narendra Modi leading the global south, collecting everybody together to be a part of the solution rather than adversarial. And promises were made in Paris. Sadly, all promises unkept. Throughout the last 10 years since 2015, the larger debate has not been about climate change. It's about the failure of the developed world to either meet the needs of technology, to meet the needs or demands of low-cost, long-tenure funding, akin to grant-based funding, and the common but differentiated responsibility, the principle of CBDR that was adopted in Paris, so that the less developed countries and the developing countries would have enough carbon or enough carbon space to ensure their development imperatives are met, to ensure that they can also aspire for a better quality of life for their citizens, so that they can go up the development cycle, and collectively the whole world benefits from this energy transition, works as friends, but ensuring also equity and inclusiveness in this journey to transit to a cleaner world. Sadly, the developed world has completely left us in the lurch. OECD came out with a report last year showing that they have provided $100 billion 9 years after Paris. But it was completely full of holes. That report spoke about private sector funding. That report spoke about funds which were equity-based or profit-based. The orientation was not development. And therefore, I think in today's scenario, all of us and right-minded individuals will have to really worry how we are going to balance the demands of clean energy, the demands of the challenges of climate change with the need for inclusive growth. That, to my mind, is the biggest challenge today. So if one developed country, a large developed country, decides not to at all contribute to this effort or this energy transition, if another set of countries in the developed world decide everybody will be taxed at the same level for carbon, like Europe has come out with the CBAM regulations, if we do not start recognizing the importance of per capita emissions, which is really the benchmark which will determine who is responsible for that mess up there, we will not be able to find a solution to this problem. And therefore, the fragmentation is not in the understanding and nor in the partnerships or friendships. The fragmentation is in the mindset. It's in the thinking. And that thinking is clearly going down a wrong path. India, for example, has only contributed to 3.5% of the carbon up there. We support 17% of the world population. Yet, if we are going to be asked to contribute at the same level as a European company, I think that is going to be patently unfair, improper, irregular, and maybe with these kind of ideas, what Europe will end up doing is only hurting their own economy, hurting their own future. To my mind, one of the most conscious countries to this challenge has been India. And not since now, not after the inconvenient truth came out. We didn't need Vice President Al Gore to tell us the inconvenient truth. We knew this truth for centuries and generations. I have often said, in fact, even I said it in London last week, that if in our childhood, and Sumant would probably have had the same childhood as Vaishali or Mr. Gupta or many of the senior press persons here, if in our childhood we left a room in our home with the light or fans not switched off, the mother would give you a whack you couldn't forget for 20 years. Today you call up the driver half an hour before you even start from home or office. Keep the AC on so that my 7-minute drive to the office is comfortable. Domino's will never reduce its size of pizza. The helpings in United States of America for each of the food dishes can probably feed a family. The real problem before us is of consumption waste, is of high levels of prosperity leading to an attitude, a behavioral approach which is wasteful in nature, which is adding to the carbon. And bear in mind, it may sound like a simple, silly example, but if a falafel or a pizza is going to be beyond what we are going to be able to eat, the carbon starts from the farm to the trucking of the farm produce, to the machinery required to produce it, to the space required to store it, the warehousing, to the manufacture of the produce, packaging of the produce, marketing or distribution, and then the disposal of waste, again leading to additional carbon. So it's a whole ecosystem which we have created, which we will have to address. Small elements of it are not going to make any difference. We have very ambitious targets. India is going to be 500 gigawatt, as Sumant was saying. But we need to feed that energy into a grid. And that grid needs base load. Something which was almost impossible to explain to Secretary John Kerry in the Obama administration. I broke my head trying to explain to him I needed technology to feed in more solar or wind energy into the base, into the grid. And the only response I got was, there must be a way. And sadly, Europe is not addressing the real challenges before them. The huge amount of waste that you can see across the countries, but are trying to create impediments to businesses, to trade, to free flow of goods. Though, in a way, I'm not very much worried about it, because I can see the decline of Europe if they implement things like CBAM. And that will open up a much bigger market for us, much bigger opportunities for us. It will actually lead to inflation and infrastructure becoming more expensive, automobiles becoming more expensive in Europe. So to that extent, as a trade minister of India, I'm not that terribly concerned. Some economy will have to go down for our economy to go up even faster. And that will open up a plethora of opportunities for us, not only in the rest of the world, in Europe also. Because as cost of living goes up, they cannot tax any and everything irrationally. They may tax a few items, but in all other items, our competitiveness will only improve. And of course, we will still retaliate also for whatever non-tariff barriers come in. So for us in India, it's a great story, and we are recognized to convert every challenge into an opportunity. If there's fragmentation in the world, Sumant, that's good for India. We will convert that also into an opportunity. It will help India, who is a friend of all, to benefit from this fragmented world also. But to my mind, the bigger challenge which the Columbia ecosystem, which is known for its research, for its spirit of inquiry, working on energy, will have to focus on is really what is the root cause of this problem. Who are responsible? Who will pay for it? And if they do not pay for it, who will ultimately bear the brunt of this crisis before us? And in that, I think India stands out as a lighthouse. India stands out as an oasis in the desert. We've grown our renewable energy faster than most countries. We achieved our 2030 target 8 years ahead of schedule by 2022 itself. The renewable energy target. Solar itself has gone up almost 30 times in the last decade. I remember when I took over as renewable energy minister in 2014, we barely had 1.5, 2 gigawatt. We are now over 100 gigawatt. In the UNFCCC, every country is required to give a report every 2 years. Most countries do not. India religiously sends in our report. And amongst all nations, we are one of the best performing nations when it comes to our nationally determined contributions at Paris. India is conscious of its growing importance in global trade, in the global economic growth, contributing 16% to global growth, fastest growing large economy, expected to add nearly $30 trillion in the next 22, 25 years to our GDP. 30 trillion is not a small number. It's 8 times India's current GDP size. And that brings us into a position which will really keep us at the forefront also of the energy transition. We will be a friend and a partner to the shared prosperity of every nation in the world. We are looking to expand our global footprints. We are looking to engage with the world from a position of strength with confidence, not shying away from challenges, not shying away from competition. We are ready to collaborate with the best in the world. We are ready to compete with the best in the world, and are very confident that India will emerge winner even in this energy story in the years to come, be it our own foray to introduce LED lighting, one of the fastest rollout of LED lights anywhere in the world, be it our effort to promote electric vehicles through various initiatives, be it our effort to cut down on carbon or fossil fuel for our energy needs, be it our effort to green our fuel with biofuels or ethanol blending, be it our effort to introduce electrolyzers, green ammonia and green nitrogen so that we can power our energy needs 24/7 through clean energy, be it our efforts to be the preferred destination for clean energy driven data centers who are locating in India from across the world, given the large amount of confidence in the Indian grid that India today provides. In fact, just 3 days back or 4 days back, this was a topic of conversation in Europe, that our 500 gigawatt interconnected national grid, thanks to Prime Minister Modi's initiative in 2014, when we started connecting all the regional grids, invested billions of dollars to have one national grid. Not only have we ensured access to energy across the country 24/7 at affordable prices through the seamless flow of energy, not only have we strengthened the grid to take in much more clean energy, but we've also prepared the groundwork, the framework on which data centers can have high amount of redundancy, high amount of reliability, high resilience. And therefore, I don't think any country in the world has such a robust current grid, expected in the next 7 or 8 years to be a 1,000 gigawatt interconnected grid, providing huge opportunities both for clean energy, for industrial growth, for economic growth, attracting investments from across the world. Wherever I go now, the huge amount of investor interest, the huge amount of interest in nations to do free trade agreements with India, to enter into bilateral trading arrangements, to encourage free flow of data, encourage free flow of goods, expand our services engagement, encourage more and more student interface and exchange, encourage greater amount of mobility within nations. The whole world is becoming India's stage today. And I think I would like to conclude by inviting Columbia also to look at either setting up a campus in India or partnering with institutions of eminence in India, because going forward, your students will benefit immensely with a stint in the world's fastest growing large economy. Your students will benefit immensely with learning the way India thinks, the way India works, the way India grows. The opportunities of India will open up large opportunities for your students, as will our students benefit from the way of thinking and the way of working in a developed and modern nation like the United States. And therefore, let's work together, expand our relations. We have a very liberal new education policy, very inviting of foreign universities, very liberal in the guidelines to allow you to operate here. And dual degrees are being recognized increasingly. Partnerships are being encouraged. I suggest and would like to encourage Columbia also to think of India as your next destination. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Minister, for those enlightening remarks, setting the stage for this panel discussion, telling us where we stand in this fragmented world when it comes to energy transition. And we've got a fantastic panel here. Suman Sinha, who is leading Renew and one of the strongest voices on energy transition and India's right to win in the energy transition space. We have with us Jason Bordoff, Founding Director, Center on Global Energy Policy at Columbia University, and David Turk, who was recently the Deputy Secretary in the Department of Energy in the United States in the Biden administration. So he'll be able to tell you quite a bit as far as the change in thinking in the United States. And he's also a distinguished visiting fellow at the Center on Global Energy and Policy. So let me kick this off with something I picked up during Minister Goyal's speech. Minister, you've spoken about a very fragmented world order. You've really been burning the midnight oil with different nations, negotiating trade agreements. It's been a tough few months. Could you give us a sense that when it comes to the talk on climate change, when it comes to the conversation on energy transition. It must be a difficult conversation. How have things been going, and how have you been tackling that?
Parikshit, I never said it's a fragmented world. I said it's a fragmented mindset. The world is not fragmented. We are in continuous dialogue with everybody. Point one. Point two, it's not a tough situation. I'm enjoying my work. So there's nothing tough about my work. And point three, gradually the conversations around climate are dwindling faster than one can imagine. And it all started there. So I think other than a little bit of European, that last when the candlelight is blowing off, the last little bit of CBAM or some of their, I think, very, very irrational regulations are the only last vestiges left. Until the developed world understands that they have to pay for what they have benefited from for so many years, until the polluter pays principle is universally accepted, until they are willing to share technologies and finance, well, we'll have to trust God will take care of things.
Right. So does this mean that talks on the trade deal with countries like EU and UK, which are insisting on a carbon tax, may take longer? Do you feel that's making things difficult at this
No,
juncture?
trade is a different issue. Trade talks are going on very well. If they put in a carbon tax, and there is now a very big if, for obvious reasons, you will understand. So if they do put it in, we'll retaliate. There's no problem. And they will put it in on products which really will hurt their own economy. The retaliation will be on products which will further hurt their economy. So I think it will be very silly, particularly to put tax on friendly countries like India. So I'm in continuous dialogue with them, and I hope wiser sense will prevail with the European countries.
Right. So let's get in a sense from our panelists who've been watching you very, very closely, sir. David, if I can get you in. We spoke to John Podesta, who was here just before the Biden administration left office. And he was very clear that India is the key partner, the partner for the United States when it comes to energy transition and energy transition supply chains as well. A lot of that has changed over the last few months. Give us a sense of where do things go? Where are things right now as far as the US approach and commitment to energy transition and climate action?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question, and thank you, Minister, for your leadership and your terrific remarks here today. And Sumant, thank you for your just extraordinary leadership and Renew's leadership. I think what it's important as an American, Jason and I are both U.S. citizens and Americans, is to take a bit of a step back. Countries obviously have elections. We vote for those leaders. It wouldn't surprise you that I may have voted a different way in the previous election, given that I served very proudly in the Biden administration, where we, I think, made some real progress on the climate side and getting our act together in the United States. But I think it's useful for everybody to take a step back and appreciate, as in any country, especially a democracy, there are a lot of different voices, there are a lot of different perspectives, and there's a lot of different constructive partnerships that can happen with the United States. Columbia University, just as you mentioned, Minister, is one terrific example. Jason spent about a dozen years building up this phenomenal global center on energy policy, which can be such a great partner with India, great partner with other countries around the world, so we can all learn from each other. As the minister knows from being energy minister and all the 12 other ministries that but especially on the energy ministry side, transitioning our energy economies in any country is an incredibly challenging undertaking. It's not just electricity, it's transportation, it's industry, it's buildings across the board. So I think there's partnerships with Columbia and the center that Jason established and runs. I think there's partnerships with the private sector. There's a lot that the private sector between Indian companies, U.S. companies, and maybe the most important partnership is the partnership between our societies. Our societies are so intertwined in terms of Indians who are living in the U.S. and vice versa, and our cultures, our love of democracy, our shared values are intertwined. So I think there's a lot of partnerships, even on climate, even on issues that maybe the current administration doesn't prioritize. I'd also say, as someone who's been in the energy world, I also was the deputy at the International Energy Agency and have looked at this very analytically and looked at the numbers and looked at where we need to go. India's success in the energy transition is the world's success in the energy transition. Not only because India is such a powerful economy, such an energy powerhouse, but I think India has an innovation ecosystem that is just exemplary. Sumant, you've been part of that. Your company's been a part of that. This is where partnering with U.S. institutions, partnering with U.S. universities, private sector, I think can help that innovation ecosystem. Whether it's solar and the incredibly impressive numbers, as the minister, you just went through the incredibly impressive numbers on solar since you were MNRE, since you were the minister on the renewable, all because of you and your leadership back then, and a lot of other hard work by many others. Incredible progress on storage, on grids. There's clean baseload power opportunities. I know we've got the ambassador from Denmark here who's working with you all in offshore wind. That's an interesting opportunity with higher capacity factors that complement solar. Enhanced geothermal. We were told today there's now a fusion energy company startup here in India. So I'll leave it there, but I think it's in everyone's interest around the world, and certainly the center that Jason started, to partner with India in this transition for the betterment of the people of India, first and foremost, but the world benefits as well.
Right, Sumant, we believe, and we've been hearing that you're on the cusp of expanding manufacturing in the country, becoming a greater supplier in the global supply chain as well. And we believe there is an announcement in the offing as well. Could you give us a sense of where you believe India has a right to win today?
Do you have some insider information?
No.
No, thank you.
Got it right on time.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I'll go till 5.
Okay, thank you, Parikshit. No, I think what Parikshit is referring to is the fact that, we set up a solar manufacturing business a couple of years ago. So we're now making 6.5 gigawatts of solar panels and 2.5 gigawatts of cells, which we're expanding to 6.5 as well. And we've just actually raised funding and signed an agreement with an investor, the BII, to invest $100 million in our solar manufacturing business. So that is something that is happening fairly soon. And in terms of, I think, sorry, what was your question, Parikshit? I got waylaid by the.
I believe India has a right to win.
Look, I think first of all, India has a very large market, which we're all aware of, right? And given the fact that we're going to be adding at least 50-60 gigawatts of solar every year, just in that one sector, we need almost 70-80 gigawatts of solar modules every year, which is going to be the second largest amount in the world. Now, given that size of domestic market, we can actually have a very vibrant manufacturing industry. Solar modules, of course, is one, but then also immediately at the same time in batteries and then electrolyzers and so on. And there are lots of ancillary industries that can be developed on the back of that, glass manufacturing, structures. Then similarly in wind turbines as well, we are now looking at trying to have a stronger manufacturing industry within the country with more components also getting made here. So I think number one is the size of the industry and the scale of the market size. Number two, I think, is the fact that we now have a lot of companies operating in the space that are all willing and capable to invest in the manufacturing side. Number three, it's inevitable to me that now with that scale of manufacturing coming in, you'll start seeing a lot more R&D happening as well. And on the back of that, much more innovation will start happening. And I'm pretty clear that over time, we'll start competing with the Chinese on cost as well. It may take us 4 or 5 years to get there, but we'll certainly get there at some point. And I think when we get to that point, then the ability to offer diversification to other countries is really going to become much stronger. And I think that's really where we can, like in a number of other industries where we open up, we can actually become an exporter in a very big way. And I think that's really what's going to happen in India as well.
Right. Jason, as we look at fragmentation and mindsets, as the minister pointed out, when it comes to climate action and energy transition, you've got US on one side, which in a way has retreated from its leadership in climate action right now. Then you've got China, you've got UK, European Union in one position, you've got India. How do you think the talk around climate action and mitigation and adaptation is getting impacted as a result of these differences in views? And what is the best way forward right now?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And what a privilege to be here. Thanks to Renew and At Columbia School of International Public Affairs, we have extraordinary alumni around the world, and no better example of that than Sumant and Vaishali. So thanks for the partnership in building this. As you heard, I started the Center on Global Energy Policy after leaving the National Security Council in the White House for President Obama just over a decade ago. And one of the first visits I made was to India. And Minister Goyal was kind enough to receive me at the time when this center was just an idea. It was a couple of people. And I explained what the rationale for it was. Columbia University has been a leader on climate change and sustainability for decades. 50 years ago this year, the word global warming was first used in an academic article by a professor at Columbia. So why start a new institute? It's an energy institute. And I say that because it overlaps, but is not exactly the same thing as being a climate institute. It means what we have done at the Center on Global Energy Policy is try to bring under one roof expertise in all parts of energy security, now as a geopolitical issue, energy for development and emerging markets and lower income countries around the world, energy as a critically important matter of economic growth, not just in lower income countries or middle income countries, but read Mario Draghi's report on competitiveness in Europe, and of course as a critically important driver of sustainability and climate. And that's what I heard in Minister Goyal's remarks today. It's what he said to me when I was here a decade ago in his incredibly thoughtful and always provocative way. I remember you took your cell phone out a decade when I was here last. It wasn't the last time, but the first time back then, and said, I just got back from New York the day before, and I was jet lagged, so I woke up at 3 a.m, and I took a picture at my hotel window, and every light is on in Manhattan. So don't come and talk to me about energy efficiency. And it was a fair thing to say. And you heard that again reflected in his remarks today. And I think that's important because where we are in the world today, it is a little unique, I think, the Center on Global Energy Policy, not just for being the biggest energy think tank, but intentionally putting under one roof as a center of excellence expertise in all parts of energy, oil and gas, coal, renewable, solar, wind, nuclear, climate policy, and expertise in geopolitics and national security and China and Russia and Saudi and sanctions and tariffs and trade, and say we can't think about one of these things if we're not thinking about all of them at the same time. And I think that everybody understands that today, right? The world today is thinking about energy security, energy affordability in advanced economies, not just the Trump administration. It's Mark Carney tearing up a carbon tax. This is first order of business. Or leaders in Brussels pulling back on some of their climate targets because of concerns about what energy prices are doing to Europe's economic competitiveness. And a recognition that we can't make progress on the transition or sustain public support for it if we're not dealing with energy security and affordability at the same time. That's where India has always been. Leaders in India have made that clear for a very long time. And so the point about fragmentation is energy security is back at the front of the agenda, along with concerns about climate. And we're talking about energy security premium as much as a green premium in many parts of the world. But we're doing that now in a world, and I'd really be interested in Minister Goyal's comment on this, after decades of efforts to create a more integrated global economy, we're doing that where those efforts are being thrown into reverse, and where countries are thinking about economic security, energy security, technology security, first and foremost, and recognize that this multi-decade effort to create a more integrated global economy has created risks and vulnerabilities. Supply chain concentration, 70, 80, 90% in countries like China. And the question is, how do we address those without throwing massive sand in the gears to the pace of the energy transition? Because it is just very difficult and more expensive if everybody tries to make everything at home. So we have to figure out how to build partnerships, more collaboration between countries like the US and India, and figure out how we diversify supply chains, because in the end, energy security does come from diversification. But that concentration is one of the challenges now that we need to figure out how to address, which is why it's so wonderful to see the announcement, Sumant, that you just made a moment ago. And I'd love to hear how India is thinking about addressing that challenge.
Right. Thank you so much, Jason. And when you speak about supply chains, Minister Goyal, your conversations with the US administration recently, when it comes to India being a bigger supplier for the US, when it comes to solar equipment for that matter, manufacturing equipment in the energy transition sector, how has that conversation been going?
Well, I think the conversation with the US is going fabulously well. We were amongst the first countries to be actively engaged with the United States. Incidentally, a free trade agreement with the US is not something we are talking about now. I talked about it during the Trump administration. I talked about it during the Biden administration. When Mr. Obama had come at that time, we were not yet talking of FTAs and all. It was too early. We were just into government. But in Trump one, I remember a series of conversations, but there was always a problem of the Congress not willing to accept any new free trade agreements. Even in the Biden administration, I talked several times to my counterparts, but there was the similar problem. So personally, I think it's a great opportunity for the US and India to come closer together. As you rightly pointed out, we are two vibrant democracies. We have shared interests in terms of global good. And I see the conversations going extremely well. We have a target, a mission to expand our bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030. And I think we are progressing in the right direction to achieve that.
Right. There's a lot of conversation that you may even have an interim trade deal before fall within the 90-day pause period that has been implemented by the Trump administration. So could you give us any insight on those conversations?
I like at least the perseverance that media has.
All right. So we'd leave it there, I guess.
You asked me this, I don't know how many times and about how many FTAs.
No, one can understand. It's not done till it's done. So let's move on. David, let me get you in at this stage. Even as we speak about the importance of energy transition in FTA talks, give us a sense of areas where you feel that India and US can start working more closely together, looking at the global challenges that we're facing right now.
So I think India, and if you think of Indian society and U.S. society is working together in all sorts of ways, just as the minister had said, across energy, but so many different areas. I think what you just asked the minister, and I do appreciate your perseverance as well, is diversifying supply chains. Diversifying supply chains is absolutely in the U.S.'s interests. Absolutely in India's interest, absolutely in other countries' interests who don't have diverse supply chains, but also, frankly, can benefit from the jobs and economic opportunities. It shouldn't be just one country that gets the benefit from the jobs and economic opportunities in this growing, incredibly expanding, Sumant, we don't need to tell you this, incredibly expanding supply chains. So that feels like an area that is a no-brainer to work together. Government to government, but society to society. It's in everybody's interest.
Right. Minister, when it comes to self-reliance, Atmanirbharta in supply chains today, it's not a choice. We have to do it. We're seeing a strong right to win in several renewable energy sectors. We're looking at a strong offtake in electric vehicles in the country as well. Keeping all of this in mind, when it comes to having a stronger supply chain within the country, what more steps can we expect from the government, or at least what would be the thinking of the government in terms of pushing the industry and making sure we are self-reliant and we can secure our supply chains for future?
First of all, let's recognize when we talk of self-reliance, it's an interplay between self-reliance and competitiveness. Every country cannot produce everything. I mean, the Michael Porter theory ultimately holds good, that there'll have to be a comparative advantage that different countries will have over the other. When we talk of Atmanirbharta, you're generally looking at critical products which could cause you despair or distress in times of emergency being under your control. So COVID was kind of a wake-up call, which led to a greater recognition of the importance of self-reliance or resilience in supply chains. All of us in the world, everybody is looking at focusing on a certain degree of self-reliance, but simultaneously is also opening their doors wider for greater exchange of goods and services. So I think despite a certain pause that you may see for a year or two, ultimately global trade is going to only grow bigger. as more nations join the bandwagon of prosperity, global trade will grow, global exchange of technologies, global exchange of people, the entire world is going to go through a churn which will only be for the better. And as was rightly pointed out, I think the US and India are totally complementary to each other. We are a perfect fit where there's hardly anything, save and except one or two products, where we compete with each other. Otherwise, we are totally two complementary economies. At $83,000 per capita income, what the US can produce can never compete with Indian goods made in India. And there are so many technologies and so many innovations and products which are not available in India, which I would rather buy from the United States than from many other non-market economies. So frankly, this is a partnership that's truly contemporary, a win-win for both, and will be the defining partnership in the coming months and years, given the very sheer scale of the American economy today and the delta of opportunity that India offers as it grows from a $4 trillion to a $30 or $35 trillion economy by 2047.
Right. Sumant, what would be the ambition for Renew for that matter? And when it comes to the economic opportunity out of energy transition, what do you see as a 10-year roadmap for India, not just in domestic manufacturing, but also globally for exports?
I think first of all, we must recognize the size and scale of the Indian opportunity in energy. And this is a number that I'm quite fond of talking about, which is that by 2047, we have to, as per the CEA's plan, add close to 2,000 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity, which if you look at it today, our entire size of our power sector is 500 gigawatts. And that of the US is 1,000 gigawatts. We have to add double of the US's current capacity from all sources in the next 20 years in India. I mean, that is just, you can't conceive of that actually when you start thinking about it. But that's the scale of what we have to build. What that means is that the companies that are operating in the sector right now, over the next 10 to 15 years, are really going to become world-leading companies, both in terms of size, scale, and quality. And I think that is the challenge that exists in front of us. But it's also a massive opportunity that we have to work on. And I think once we start getting to those numbers, and we're already among the 10th to 15th sort of largest companies in the world, we'll be able to start, as I said earlier, spending in new kinds of technologies, new kinds of R&D, all sorts of new areas of innovation will emerge. And companies will become much more broad-based than they are right now. For example, we as a company started as a wind company. Then we got into solar, we got into transmission, now we're into solar manufacturing. Soon we'll be hopefully looking at nuclear as an opportunity, pumped storage solutions, green hydrogen, and who knows what new things the sector is going to emerge over a period of time. And therefore, over the next 10 to 15 years, companies like ours will become multifaceted, operating across different parts of the value chain and operating across different energy sources and types. And to me, that's a very, very exciting future that we are looking to be part of and to build. I think, it's going to be quite interesting.
All right. I'll just take now final comments. Jason, what would be your recommendation as someone who's looked at the energy transition story very closely? What can ensure that India continues to grow and becomes one of the biggest reliable suppliers or reliable parts of the supply chain in the world when it comes to the energy transition and renewable energy?
Well, Minister Goyal made a comment in his remarks about being a partner for so many countries and working with everyone. And India's role in this, I think it is fragmenting global economy, but it plays a critical role as one of the most important countries that has a very diverse set of relationships. It comes back to what Dave Turk said. And as someone who's thought a lot in my career about the energy transition, but also about energy security, what I was thinking about listening to Minister Goyal's comment is the question of where does energy security come from? It's back front in the agenda now in the US, in Europe. It has been for many years in many other parts of the world. And self-reliance is important, but too often And when you think of the history of this conversation in the United States, we talk about independence. I hate the word independence. It sort of suggests isolation. You need to disconnect from the world. And the history of energy security is about diversification. It's about being interconnected. It's about being part of a well-functioning global economy where if there is a supply disruption in one part of the world, whether it's a nuclear plant in Japan or an oil supply disruption somewhere in the world, security comes from the ability for flows to shift around and for you to be connected to other parts of the world. In a world of great power competition and rivalry, particularly between the US and China, if the US wants to think about energy security, everybody else has to be your friend. You have to work more, not less, with partners around the world to diversify supply chains and to build partnerships in manufacturing, as Dave Turk said, and others. And I think that is a huge opportunity for India because so many countries now are looking to do that, to build resilience, to build diversification, as well as to accelerate a transition to clean energy and think about how to build more diverse supply chains in clean energy and in other parts of the energy supply chains. And I think that's an enormous opportunity for the US and many other countries to work with India.
All right. Thank you so much, Jason, Sumant, Minister Goyal, and David for joining us. I believe the minister is running out of time. He has very important meetings through the day, but we'd really like to thank him for joining us, and Sumant and Jason and David for being with us, and everyone in the audience as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.